You run a private practice and your front desk turnover is every 6 to 12 months. It's not just how it is. It's just a broken system. And so in this video, I'm going to walk you through a very simple 3-part retention plan that's going to make good front desk staff stay for years instead of months without blowing up your payroll. So stick around, because once you see this, I really do think that you'll realize that was never an actual people problem in the first place. If you own a private practice, maybe you're a PT, a chiro, dental, specialty clinic, and your front desk feels like a revolving door, this is going to be for you. You maybe hire somebody, you train them up just enough to be useful, right? So you end up covering shifts yourself, right? And you're retraining every few months. And every time somebody quits, you lose real patient revenue and sanity, right? It stresses you out. If that's you, you're not alone, and it's very fixable. So in the next few minutes, what I'm going to walk you through is 3 primary levers: your role design, your onboarding, and a simple scorecard that you can use with incentives. And so I want you to leave this video with a clear checklist that you can start implementing this quarter to solve this problem. So let's start with the first problem. First problem is that you're hiring a receptionist for a job that's, honestly, it's really an operations manager, right? On paper, it's answering phones, it's greeting patients, but in reality, it's phones, scheduling, insurance, billing, follow-ups, it's angry patients, it's tracking metrics, right? So you're paying them like a basic admin person, but you're expecting them to run half of your clinic operations for you. That mismatch is a recipe for burnout in 6 to 12 months. People just don't want to do all that for little to no pay, right? And so in most of the higher performing clinics that we work with, the front desk role is actually clinic operations and patient experience, right? So they own the experience from the first call to the final visit, and they keep score on every key metric along the way. So step 1 is to redesign the seat into a winnable role. If the job is bigger than receptionist, stop pretending that it's receptionist. So here's a simple framework. So you can define 3 core outcomes for the role. Outcome 1 is calls are answered and converted into booked visits. That's a key core role, right? Number 2, the second outcome is the schedule stays full and clean, minimal gaps, minimal no-shows, and they're handled, right? All of your follow-ups are booked. Outcome number 3 is that patients feel cared for. They don't feel like they're processed. They don't feel like this is a transactional experience for them. They get greeted, they get remembered, and they get followed up with warmth and a smile, right? Then you can write everything that is not their job, things like clinical decisions, not them, right? Marketing strategy, not them. IT help desk, not them. And so if every provider in your building is allowed to dump random tasks on the front desk, that role will always feel impossible to them. So you want a job that a good person can actually win at. That is super key. Too much on the front desk, right? So your first action item is to rewrite the job description and the internal expectations for that role and for your entire team. So you can call it something like the Clinic Operations and Patient Experience Coordinator, and make those 3 outcomes very crystal clear. So the big idea number 2 is that your onboarding is too short and too vague. This is key across most roles, but especially with the front desk. This is the hardest position to train. It's the most complicated position, right? Most clinics may do a day or 2 of shadow Sally, right? Or shadow me, right? And they throw that new person on the phones and hope for the best. And 6 months later, they still don't feel fully competent. They're anxious, every shift. They get feedback only when they mess up. And eventually, they tap out and they quit. It's a hard place to be, right? You won't retain people that you never fully train. So instead, I want you to think of this in terms of a 30-day runway and not a 2-day crash course, right? So week 1 can be something like learn and script, right? So they listen to the calls, they read the scripts, and they start practicing with you, not with live patients, but they just simulated environments, right? You or maybe one of your lead people on your team can walk them through your core workflows, your new patient calls, your reschedules, cancellations, and taking payments, right? They're not flying solo yet. They're just doing reps with spotters, right? And you're kind of just bumping them and nudging them along the way. Week 2 is that they own the phones and scheduling with training wheels, right? So they start taking live calls, they start booking visits, and they start managing the schedule. But they follow a written checklist for each type of call, right? And so you want to see them pick up the phone and actually walk through the checklist, right? And so you can do a quick 10-minute debrief with them every day. And I do this with any end of day person that I'm onboarding. It's, what went well, what broke, what didn't go well, and what questions do you have and what support do you need from me, right? Through those 10-minute debriefs is where you can tighten up the scripts and plug any holes before they could become habits. And you can start to understand how they're viewing their challenges from their eyes so that you can step in and help, right? Week 3 is going to be where you start to layer in the billing and insurance basics. Plus, you might start layering in the patient follow-ups. This is where things start getting a little bit more dynamic, right? One new system at a time, all right? So don't dump all of the billing, the prior auths, and the 3 EMR stuff. So the key here is it's one new system at a time. Don't do what I used to do and dump, the billing, the prior auths, right? And all the EMR stuff on them in one afternoon. It's a lot. And it took you a long time to learn that stuff, so give them some grace, right? Week 4 is they can start running the front desk with you being more of a spot checker, right? Maybe you start reviewing their calls, you look at the schedule, and you can give them feedback against maybe the 3 role outcomes that you've designed. And the thing to know about this is that, here's the thing, is it slower? Yes. Is it cheaper than losing them every 6 to 12 months and starting from zero? Also yes, right? So that investment on the front end is super key, right? All right, so your second action item is for you to sketch out a simple 30-day onboarding plan on one piece of paper, right? Just like we outlined. And so, you can move this around, but pre-design it instead of trying to design it in the middle of the workday and be in reaction, right? Be more proactive about this. So in general, week 1 is listen and script. Week 2 is your phones and your schedule. Week 3 is your billing and follow-up. And then week 4 is your run the show and with maybe more light supervision and touch points, maybe a weekly cadence, a weekly meeting. So that's your high-level overview of what a 30-day onboarding process could look like. All right, your third big idea here is to make the job winnable. You want them to win. You want them to feel like they're winning, right? And so you can do that with a simple scorecard and maybe a little bit of an upside for them, right? Nobody wants a role where they only hear from the boss when something goes wrong. Trust me, I make that mistake all the time, right? So the truth is that right now, not just you, but most front staff have no idea if they're doing a great job or if they're doing a terrible job, right? And they only get feedback when a provider is mad, when a patient is mad, or when you get upset with them, right? And you fix all of that with a simple scorecard with 3 weekly numbers. Number 1 is your call answer rate. What percentage of calls are answered live? I like to pick them up within 2 rings. That's kind of a rule that we have in our practice. Number 2 is going to be new patient conversions, right? So what percentage of inquiries turn into actual booked appointments? And then number 3 is your rebooking rate, right? What percentage of patients leave with their next visit already on the schedule? Okay. You can review these numbers in a quick 15-minute weekly check-in. I'd recommend starting with daily and just having that debrief conversation. What went well? What did we miss? What's one thing that we can try next week? And what support do you need from me, right? Then you can add maybe a small bonus that's tied to hitting these targets for the month. For example, if we hit these 3 numbers for 4 weeks, you get a $100 bonus or a $50 bonus or whatever it is that makes sense for you. It doesn't have to be huge, right? But the point is to give them a clear score to chase and a bit of an upside when they win. When good people can see the score and when they can feel the progress and they can feel like they're sharing in the winning, they're far more likely to stay and get really emotionally connected to their work. Okay, so your third action item is to pick your 3 front desk numbers, right? I just gave you some examples. Maybe they're different for your practice, but you can pick them, set realistic targets, and put them on a 1-page scorecard and review it weekly and tied to a simple bonus for consistent performance in your front desk. Trust me, most good front desk people that I have hired, they're very numbers driven. They like to chase a number. It's very fun to them. And it'll make a really big difference for your front desk. So here's a quick bonus tip or a warning, and I know this because I made this mistake, right? Do not build a great role, train them well, give them a scorecard, and then everybody else on the team dump random things on their desk. So you have to kind of protect that front desk from your team because they're very accessible, right? If you don't do that, that's really how the role slowly turns back into solve every problem for everybody in the business, right? And that's how you're going to lose really good people. Not only do they want to work hard and chase a number, but they want to feel like they have boundaries on their role and they have a little bit of work-life balance, right? And so you can just make a rule with them and with your team. Any new task that's added to the front desk means that something must come off their plate or it's going to get delegated somewhere else. Right? So just make that rule, make that expectation with your team. Protect that role so that the job stays doable and winnable. And second, protect the person. And so when a patient or a staff member is disrespectful or maybe a little abusive, right, to the front desk, step in and protect that person. Your people won't leave clinics where the owner has their back. Right? They leave places where they feel invisible, they feel like they're blamed, and they feel unprotected. So step in and make sure your front desk feels supported that way too. Okay, so quick recap. If you want to stop losing good front desk staff every 6 to 12 months, here's your game plan. Number 1, redesign the role so it matches reality. Clinic ops and patient experience, not just receptionist. Number 2, give them a real 30-day onboarding plan and experience instead of a 2-day panic cram, right? And then number 3, install a simple scoreboard and a little bonus so that they know if they're winning and they can share in the upside. And then maybe number 4, protect the role and the person, right? From all of the endless task dumping and disrespect that they're going to get from everybody else that's fighting like heck to do their job, right? You do this once and you can stop paying the turnover tax every year that you get from the front desk. And you'll finally get a stable front desk with a better patient experience, and you get to own your time back so that you can focus on the things that actually matter. If you want help doing this faster, you've got really 2 options. If you want maybe some done for you support that you'd rather have a trained virtual team run a lot of this for you, You can book a call below. There's a link somewhere to our link for Inbox Zero VA using the link in the description. If you want to explore maybe what coaching playbooks and maybe more of a business coaching community of private practice owners who are actually implementing this stuff, you can apply for the Private Practice Owners Club somewhere in the description below. Either way, don't just nod and move on. Pick one action from this video, share it with your team, and put it into play in your clinic this week. I'm Adam. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.